Sorry about that, man.
No worries. Thank you very much. Again, I'm Catherine Knabb, and I am a franchise consultant. How many of you have worked in a job before? Okay, and now you're own businesses. Some of you. How many times was that easy to select what you were going to go into and that know everything that you needed to know to make sure you were making a very good decision?
Not easy.
So there's lots of second guessing along the way, correct?
Yeah.
Well, there's always gonna be that, but I try to eliminate as much of that as possible. How many of you own franchise brands? 3, 4, okay, and did you work with anybody to select your brands, or? No, 1, okay, so 1 did not, everybody else did, great.
No.
And Janelle, you bought a brand that you were very well aware of. Excellent. So the reason I asked that question is there are many people who go about buying into a brand by themselves. And I would hate for you to be one of those people who say, oh, I wish I'd never gotten into this. I just heard somebody say that about a car wash brand recently. So we're gonna cover a lot of things. There's gonna be a lot of words on these slides, but don't worry about that. I'm not gonna say them all. What I am gonna talk about is how I got here, because I started 30 years in corporate life, and then talk about the typical franchise research process. There's some steps that need to happen along the way. And then what does it look like to start interviewing with brands and validating with existing franchisees? The importance of due diligence, that's very important toward making any kind of decision about starting a business, including a franchise. We're gonna talk about some strategies to consider. And then what's the difference between a franchise and a business opportunity? Maybe you don't want the franchise. There's other ways to do it. And then some examples of franchise types. There's so many brands that aren't here in the Memphis area. There's lots of opportunity. All right, so really briefly, did do 30 years across a number of industries, but the common thing that was happening from the very beginning, I would see gaps in process, inefficiencies, gaps in very strategic concepts. And so I'd find somebody to talk to and say, hey, this is missing, and pretty soon I had permission to kind of chase it down as a project to work on. So I was always solving strategic problems all along the way for the entire 30 years. So I bring that, instead of now plugging that into corporate life, I bring that to the community, because I absolutely believe that on the next slide that that the more strong businesses there are in a community that are owned and managed at the community level, the more families are going to have as many choices as possible. And that's what I'm about. That's the bottom line for me, giving people as many choices as possible. All right, so in the franchise research process, whether you're working with a consultant or not, it could take 8 weeks, 12 weeks or longer. On my process, about the first 4 or 5 weeks or so is getting to know a client, really understanding what is important to them in terms of their goals, what they want their lifestyle to look like, what they want their work day, what kind of conversations do they want to have with what kind of people. These things make a difference in what kind of business you should be in. And are you going to be the executive? Well, then you better be prepared to find that very well-fitting, empowered, and responsible manager, or else you're going to be working that business all the time. So I've got resources for helping people find that, funding options, franchise attorneys who can help them look for the legal red flags. And then once I am talking with them, I'm just weeding out the 500 brands in my portfolio. Other brands, if they are interested in something, it's not in my portfolio. I start looking for businesses of that nature to give them some options. And I'm weeding out to get to a short list to help them start interviewing with those short lists. They might get surprised. They might want a Chick-fil-A. Everybody wants a Chick-fil-A. Or they might want a car wash. They might want something else. But based on what I'm hearing from them and what they want their life to look like, I'm gonna present them with a list that's selected to fit them. And I'll tell them why, and why I weeded out some items that they might have thought were nice and glossy and shiny. But I'm gonna tell them why I selected these, and then get them to interview with at least 3 of them. And then they'll start interviewing with the brands. First, a brand interview. The brand is trying to make sure that they're a good fit for them. The candidate should make sure that the brand is a good fit for them, because it needs to be a nice cultural fit both ways. And then if they all like each other, the brand will share the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, 180, 200 pages. It's like the college catalog of the franchise industry. For an incoming franchisee, they sign a franchise disclosure document, a franchise agreement for 10 years. That's their college catalog. That's spelling out their royalty percentage. That's spelling out the rules they have to operate within for the next 5 or 10 years, whatever their contract is. So they want a franchise attorney looking at that with them. So I'm hooking them up to people like that. In the validation interviews, they're talking with existing franchisees. I can't make financial claims. The brand can't make financial claims. That's against the law. So they have to talk with the existing franchisees to ask very, very good questions to create a P&L that's going to help them have clarity about what to do. And meanwhile, they're also lining up their funding and stuff. They're getting more information so they can narrow down exactly what funding tool, how much, and so on. And then the discovery days, that's when the red carpet is rolled out. They go to visit an on-site location, and the brand just really shows out, tries to impress them. And that's often as well when they invite them to invest in the brand. And that's when you know you've won the interview process. And then if you have clarity, it may be that you decide, nope, not right now, but that is a great decision. Because if it's a well-informed decision, then wonderful. But maybe it's clarity that this is the brand for me. I'm excited about it. Where's the dotted line? I'm going to sign and pay my franchise fee. So that's the broad overview. When I'm working with a client, I am really trying to dig into what's their why and why right now. Because often as not, they're running away from something. Maybe not running away, but things have changed in their life, or they're saying, okay, this has been my life so far. Now I want something different. And there's some key motivators that are making them make that change. Those are factors into matching. If they don't like this anymore, then I want to make sure that whatever I'm selecting for them in the matching perspective is not going to be a replication of that. So if somebody has worked in real estate back office for all those years, but they want to get out of real estate, or they're looking at franchise, I might not give them anything real estate wise. I might, but it depends on how tired of it they are. You know, if it's lost the any excitement for them, then I want to give them something they can be passionate about, but also something that's going to draw on their skills and knowledge and other assets they have. I want to find out what they want their life to look like in 1, 3, 5 years, because that's important. And I tell people, don't expect that starting a business is going to be easy, even if you're choosing a passive model. And a lot of people want to choose a passive model where they put a manager in place. That's not easy either, because you've got to empower the manager and step in when the manager doesn't get it right. But you want to get that manager to the place where the manager is handling the emergencies, so that the passive owner doesn't necessarily have to be on call 24/7. But the 1, 3, 5 years goal. So work hard this year, work hard next year. 3 years, you might want to have more free time than what you did in the job. 5 years, you might want to be fully passive, with the exception of playing like the executive role, keeping tabs on things. So you're setting up the people in place, empowering them to do that. So I'm looking at businesses that are gonna fit that. What kind of conversations do you wanna have and with whom? If you wanna do networking in the community, there's a lot of businesses that work with that model. If you are very hesitant about sales, then maybe you want something with a call center so that the sales come to you. Or retail, people just walk in the door. So what you want your life and the kind of conversations you want to have, that makes a big difference. Where's the money coming from? That should limit what is you're choosing. The amount of money that you need to spend, and you don't want to break the bank. No, you don't want to break the bank. You want to do it in a reasonable fashion so that you're adding wealth as time goes on. If you're an employee now, or if somebody is an employee and they go to being self-employed, they go from having the support system of an HR department, purchasing department, and all of that, and now they're wearing all the hats as a self-employed person. How many of you know that feeling? Yeah, it's hard. You work a lot. So the idea, if you read Robert Kiyosaki at all, is to go from employee, maybe self-employed, but you want to quickly get over to that B side where you're a business owner with people empowered to do things so that your business is more taking care of itself, and then get to the investor model where you've got assets that are generating additional assets. So think smartly about how to plan the execution of building a business. And then very importantly, the spousal consent and naysayers. There's always going to be naysayers. Just get it ready. Why'd you do that? Chances are they're jealous. They wish they could jump out and do something independent. So there'll be naysayers because they're just cranky people. Forget about it. But spousal, other people who are influential in your decision-making process, you want to bring those people along. And I want those people along to say they're on board with going through the research process, or I stop before we go to matching. I'm not going to spend my time doing all the matching if the spouse is not on board. So, and I'm not going to take somebody to a brand and the spouse kapoo it all. No. So, the business expenses for a franchise is largely the same as any other business. All the things on the left, except for the franchise fee. So what does the franchise fee buy you? It buys you access to the brand that's already been established. It buys you access to a playbook. Sometimes it brings some marketing stuff into the picture, sometimes not. Got to find that out. It buys you a support structure, maybe continuous learning. Now, in the second, third year and stuff, you might start paying for some elements like the systems and the marketing that they do for you and tech and whatnot. But you want to know what's built into the franchise fee. And if you think about selling a business, accounting people will know goodwill. When you sell a business and you sell it for more than what the business is worth on the balance sheet, the difference is called goodwill. Hopefully a franchise brand will have established a lot of goodwill, and that really is a portion of what's coming through on that franchise fee. You're buying something that you don't have to invent yourself. And these are different ways that people fund it. Well, the one you might not be familiar with is the ROBS. That's a rollover environment where you can take a 401k from a prior job. You can't take your current 401k, but you can roll it over into a C Corp. That C Corp creates another 401k that now invests in your LLC business. So that is a common financial practice. There's legal organizations that will do all of that and still maintain those 401ks and C Corp reporting and things like that. They'll charge kind of a flat fee for the 10 years of that work. Now, when you sell that business, you have to pay back that C Corp. So selling becomes a little trickier, but that's a common instrument that people are using. The next slide. All right, so on this one, like I say, I get people so far through the process and they have to be doing their part before I agree to do the matching. So I'm learning all the time. I'm studying brands all the time. How many different ways can a paint company compare? You got 5 paint companies. One of them is going to be a better fit for particular reasons. I'm studying that stuff so that you don't have to. How is a brand supporting its owners? If I'm listening to people, I'm looking for red flags back in the background. And if I learn that a brand is not supporting its owners properly, I'm not going to represent that brand to my clients. There's brands operating here in Memphis that I will not represent to a client because they've got so much legal stuff going on right now. Just no. I want to make sure to my clients that the importance of due diligence. So I work very hard to make sure that they're aware of that. And then make sure that they are aware of the differences between a franchise and a business opportunity. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But and then the key information covered in the FDD. Now, I'm not covering the FDD. I'm not a franchise attorney. I will give them broadly what's in it. But any questions about the FDD, they need to go back to the franchise to ask. I will not give them the FDD. When the franchise gives them the FDD, they sign that they received it. And by Federal Trade Commission law, they have to have at least 14 days to study and think and get clarity before they can sign a franchise agreement with that brand. That's Federal Trade Commission law. So if everybody's agreeing to the process and they go through and do their homework items, then I'll start doing the matching. I'm always studying brands anyway, but I'll start doing the matching and we'll present them with the short list of brands. And on the next slide, interviewing with a brand. So how many of you have ever done interviews for jobs or anything like that just for the sake of practicing interviewing? Mm-hmm. It's common practice, right? If you've not changed jobs or businesses lately, it might be a good idea. Just go do an interview for the fun and kicks of it, you know, because you're going to learn something. Yeah. Things are always changing. So I tell people, go and interview for anything. Go through an interview, because when you interview with a brand, you want to have good foot forward. So go and do an interview. And you want to be very clear on what your reasons are for getting into the brand, and you're trying to make a good impression on them. They're going to give you the franchise disclosure document. It's supposed to be written in English, and you can read that. And I'll introduce a franchise attorney so they can, for a low fee, flat fee, they can give you all the red flags that they see. On the next slide, we have existing interviews with the existing franchisees. So all the due diligence. How many units do you sell per week? What's the average cost per service? What surprised them when they were interviewing versus what happened when they actually onboarded and started their business? There's some people in this town where they got some very unwelcome surprises. So I try to help people know what kind of questions to ask, but I very clearly am not going to give them all. They have to come up with their questions. So what is their biggest area of concern? I try to help them identify their biggest area of concern. They need to develop a lot of questions around that. And then how many revenue streams does that brand offer? If you want to add additional revenue streams over the 5-10 year process, you want to have a brand that is constantly at work trying to create revenue streams. And overall, what's their level of satisfaction, and would they invest in that brand again? On our next slide, our final steps, we eliminate brands that aren't a fit, say thank you very much, and we zero in on the funding choices, lock down that franchise disclosure document review. They do their discovery day visit, and then they should have clarity about what to do. And then it's, am I signing or not? And if they sign, they're paying the franchise fee, and there's a certain onboarding thing that they're going to want to start right away, or maybe they schedule it, they do groups, and so they'll start every other month with onboarding and training. So there's some scheduling. If there's property involved, like a storefront, you know, you've got a longer runway because of finding a property and things like that. You want to make sure you understand what the brand is going to help you about property selection and specs and things of that nature. and then you sign and pay the franchise fee, and I get a commission. I get a commission? Well, yeah, because when I'm doing what I'm doing, that saves the brand from having to hire additional people to come through hundreds and thousands of people to find those one or a few people who are gonna invest in the brand. So yeah, it's worth their money to pay me a commission for that. And then by law, they can't charge that to the new owner. If you leave the contract early, sometimes they have in it that they can get back a portion of that franchise fee for leaving the contract early. So then, just in the last pages, matching and stacking the strategies. For existing business owners where they already have a business and they want to stack, I'm looking for things where you can gain efficiencies and costs, maybe lower costs of one business because of things that the other business does, leverage same supply chains, client base, things like that. I'm looking for ways for people to stack business because that's what a lot of people want to do. If people want to be the owner of the territory, I'm looking for brands where you're going to be able to own the territory. And then if we go just really quickly, we should be able to see franchise and business opportunity. They're not the same. Franchise, you're buying into that brand. A lot of rules around what you can and cannot do about the brand. And that royalty fee percentage that comes out on the revenue, that goes to the brand. Business ownership, you're paying a fee for the formula. You can brand your business however you want to do, but you're getting a formula, some training, and maybe some ongoing training for a fee, but it's not a royalty percentage. It's an independent business. And then we've got some brands. These are categories of brands, many. And on the last pages, home and family, just 3 broad categories. Home and family, there's some retail in there, some B2B, and some retail and storefront. Some brands you see, that Naturals to Go is a business opportunity. Hard Bean Coffee is a business opportunity. QC Kinetics, in some locations, they're only open 1 day a week. Yeah, crazy. So that's where we've gone through quickly. A lot of information. And do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Catherine, I was wondering, does personality play much of an impact on people that want to go in franchise? And do you ever have somebody say, yeah, it's just not a good fit besides the experience and the money?
Yes. Actually, the franchise industry uses a thing called Zoracle and DISC. Everybody's familiar with DISC, but Zoracle is a survey tool that is comprised of pieces and parts of about 7 different surveys. So they really do try to analyze personality, and then there's gut level kind of check as to whether or not it's a good fit. But yeah, personality plays a big role.
Manny wanted me to ask you this. He's a little embarrassed. He wanted to know if there's any Chippendale franchise.
Not in my portfolio, but there might be some business opportunities where somebody might have created like a licensing agreement kind of structure where, for a fee, you can get the training and so on. Yeah.
That's good.
There you go, Edie.